Hi, I'm Morgan Baker. I'm with Olympia Indivisible. I am here with Mike McGowan, who is running for their Tumwater School Board, and Jacqueline Jacobs is here with me as well. So, Mike, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your campaign.
Okay. Well, my name is Mike McGowan, and I've lived in Thurston County in Washington State for, I think, 34 years now. Um, I was a resident of Yelm for much of that time and my family and I moved to the Sunwood Lakes area, which has an Olympia address, but has a Lacey post office and a Tumwater school district. So we moved here 11 years ago. And while I was in Yelm, I worked 27 years at the Yelm Timberland Library doing information, but primarily youth services work, going to schools and so forth. And so right now I am a little bit distracted because I want to see the titles of the books on your shelf behind you. So that's always an issue. If you leave the room for a moment, I certainly will go over there and zoom in. Um, I was also, while in Yelm, on the Yelm City Council for 9 years. And while on the Yelm City Council, I was both on the budget committee there, which comes into play because I think fiscal stability and financial issues are very much a part of the Tumwater School District situation right now.
Mhm.
I was also on the uh, I worked with homelessness and affordable housing with the Thurston County Home Consortium. So that's an organization that does not exist right now, is an advisory for the county. And for 3 of the years, I was the chair of that organization. So that's a little bit my background experience and where I've lived and where I am now. And if I may go on, although if it's the next question, we can go to it on why I am running.
Sure.
And so the narrative of this, rather than the kind of maybe stock answer, is I guess it's been maybe a couple months now. Certainly 6, 8 weeks ago, I guess it was. My granddaughter, who goes to Tumwater High School, and lives next door to me and is like not only my granddaughter but a really good buddy. And she told me of a situation at a basketball game where it sounded as if there was a student athlete from another school who was potentially being picked on or bullied, and there was a Tumwater School Board meeting coming up, and I thought I would just mosey on over to it and see what was going on and how they would react to this situation. At that time, I knew very little background on either the situation or the participants or the school board, really. And so I went to that meeting, and that was at the meeting where the school board passed a resolution that was wrong on so many levels. And that caused me to look further into it now as a background, starting this year and dealing with a bit of the Washington, D.C. blues. I had kind of developed an idea that, right now I'm not sure how much we can do. But what we can do is get involved in local politics and do what we can do. And that includes demonstrations. And so that was there. And I liked the Thurston County Democrats have a presence on Facebook, and I liked what they were saying. I liked that they were talking about local events and policy issues. And I liked that they didn't ask me for money, at least not all the time. So, and AOC, if you're listening, I like you, but I think a little more dancing, a little bit less asking for money. And because she's all right. And I know that's her. But anyway, that's back to the subject at hand. So I was already primed in my mind that if an opportunity to do some good was available, that I should do what I can. So I went to the big demonstration in Olympia and, do communication with people. And so now this was going on. And as I went to the school board meeting, they passed the resolution. I was only there for half the meeting because my other granddaughter is plays cello in the orchestra, and there was a concert that night. So I zoomed over to the high school for that. And, then was just going through the reaction of what the school board who passed this resolution and didn't really say anything about it for a while. And then I started digging, and I think I mentioned to one of the Thurston County demos that I would be interested. She knew me from Yelm. She knew me at the library and the city council. And I said, I'm thinking of running. So that led me to investigate further. And as I do, and I'm still in the process of doing that, I got to see that there are several very critical issues going on with the Tumwater School Board. And so I'm still digging into those things, but it led me to believe not only it was the trans student athlete resolution bad, but the just overall reaction of how these three school board members who voted for it, I didn't want to trust them, frankly, with any of these other issues as well. So that's where I am.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that exposition. I'm gonna jump around a little bit,
Sure.
and I want to touch on some things first that you've mentioned. I don't think we need to rehash that the amendment that Tumwater passed that has since been disregarded by the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. They have failed to pass that amendment for themselves, and so Tumwater obviously has to figure out what to do from there. It's clear where you stand on that. But I want to talk a little bit about the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that you were on the budget committee. What sort of principles or lessons learned from that experience do you think you could bring to the Tumwater School Board?
Okay. Well, first of all, have a good staff and trust it, because I've been looking into the budget and budget issues on my own. And there are things that I have questions about and things that I don't quite understand. Meanwhile, when I was on the city council, I had everything laid out in book form and laptop, and now I'm on my phone and I'm trying to move the pages around. And is that the column for this? But my experience on the city council or on the budget committee was that, was in planning. And that was where it was passed on to me that this is what you do. It wasn't like I was breaking through with this idea of planning. And I am not seeing both a good plan that has been in operation or carrying through. But I think maybe the biggest lesson, and it's not just with budget, but and it's not just even with the city council, was of getting input from we'll call them the stakeholders right now, but just from whoever it is that may know more, and at times that is staff. But I think in terms of the Tumwater School Board, from what I've seen, their communication with the people involved, particularly educators, particularly the teachers, is I'm getting reports of people that I speak to say that it was failing non-existent. And so I think the biggest experience is that when going through the plan, and I don't have a specific plan right now how to address this, I'm identifying what I think the shortfall will be. But, you got to go and be asking people who know things about this and then work on a plan. So that's, I think, the two major thing is planning and communication.
Yeah, you did mention in your questionnaire that there were failures of planning and communication. So it's clear that you want to see improvements there. Circling back to the budget, have you ever in your tenure working in budgets experienced a budget shortfall? And if you have, did you get to witness bringing it back or participate in, getting things back in the black?
Yes, and frequently it was to raise funds for a project, so it wasn't a shortfall, but how to get the fund going. So there were times when bonds were passed or attempted in one case and not passed. But one in particular comes to mind, and this has been something that apparently the Tumwater School Board has done, and it's not unethical, and I don't think it's rare, but it's borrowing from other sectors of your budget. And, what unfortunately can frequently be done is you can borrow within from other funds, but usually it's 1 year that you have before you have to pay that back. Of course, what can also happen then is that you just borrow it again. But, that's not sustainable. So I've seen that as a short-term measure, and it appears that Tumwater has done that as well. What they have coming up, again, it appears to me that they will not be bankrupt, but they'll be below the threshold amount in their general fund. And so that's where they will have to make budget decisions. And I think the experience of seeing how something can be a short-term solution and also seeing how revenue is raised, it's different in the city council, where there was a water and sewer project that was needed. Okay, so you can raise water rates, you can raise sewer rates. That's things that are there. The levy lift, I have more of an experience, particularly with failed levy lifts from my time working at the library. So that's another avenue of that. There's shortfalls and there's how you raise your revenue. So there's that, but it's usually using short-term solutions as a permanent one is not a good idea. Does that answer your question
It
somewhat?
does. Yeah, it answers it excellently. I think you've articulated again the lack of planning and foresight that you're seeing and where you would like to see those improvements. So that's great. Thank you. Okay, hopping to how the school board is balancing functionality with also engaging with the population. And something interesting has happened since you've returned your questionnaire, which is that they have passed or have proposed rather a new system of comment screening.
Yes.
Are you aware of that?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that process?
Well, I don't think it's uncommon, and we had it to limit your number of questions. I think there are times, and in the city council, it probably would have been when water rates went up again, is when we would have all of a sudden a ton of people showing up at a meeting, and if everyone got 3 minutes, we may not have got out of there. So having that limit in place, with the fact that everything that is submitted in writing will be part of the public record, at least, that I don't have an issue with that. Again, it's functionality, but deciding which questions you're going to answer, I mean, no, that's wrong. And it's not that you don't, I mean, believe me, I was at a lot of meetings, and it's not that it never comes up that you're thinking, what is this person talking about? Or why are they asking this? I mean, that happens, but that's the price you pay. And you need to allow the questions. And sometimes will the first 10 questions, be from people who regularly submit questions on subjects? Yes. And sometimes will maybe better questions be in the record, but you can call those out. You can read those and then bring that up at a work session, or you can bring it up during your own comments. So I think the limiting on this, or the deciding what subject matter of the questions, is extremely weak. And
Yeah.
the
Oh, go ahead.
situation, I mean, some of the questionnaire was asking for solutions on things, and I don't. There were times some of my answers, frankly, I was probably just going for a B and filling in the blanks a little bit here because I don't have the answers yet. I'm still compiling information. But I think the situation, and I'm going to keep coming back to it because the communication I have heard, famous last words, but it doesn't seem like board members have been to the schools or met with teachers in recent years at all. And that to me is, they would have the opposite problem with me. I mean, I was at schools a whole lot when I worked in libraries, and I think they always wanted me there, but they would have trouble probably keeping me away from coming by. And I think that this is part of the issue. Rather than go and hide, in an extreme corner of I lived on Michigan Hill for a while, not far from Little Rock. So I don't want to in any way downplay Little Rock or Grand Mound because I had good times there. But, to go to a corner of the district that is difficult to access, no public transportation. And, they can say what they want, about it was to hide. I hear rumors now that they're going to just go Zoom only. I don't know if that's taken place yet. I haven't heard a public announcement about it. I don't know if that's true, but I hear it. And this is not the direction to go. I mean, they brought some of this upon themselves, and I know that some of the demonstrations and protests have been disruptive. I understand that, but you don't run away from them. I think instead of doing that, what I hope to do next year as well, whether this situation is still percolating or not, is to be much more open with people coming to meetings, but also if it's not satisfactory, if the comment period is not satisfactory, go to those schools and have an open forum. I think also, and I don't yet know rules on this matter, but it seems like you can have your school board meetings elsewhere. I would rotate them, not every month necessarily, but I would have a school meeting once a year at the high school, or just move it around the district a little bit, but to somewhere where people can get to it, somewhere where students and teachers can easily participate. This is what you want. You want to enhance communication. You don't want to try to hide from it.
Just taking a few notes.
Sure. And if you make a mistake, and I've heard people do, I'm not sure if I've experienced it myself, but I've heard people have made mistakes. Then you have to own up to it, and then deal with that. Not try to deny that it happens and run. That's not right.
Wouldn't the world be better if that were the way people operated as a norm? Okay, this one's a fun one, and it's my last one before I will pass the mic back to you for a wrap up. You're pretty uniquely poised as someone who worked in libraries, and this is a really challenging time for curriculum, for library books. And it's important to access diverse and challenging and sometimes even controversial reading material. Can you talk a little bit about how you'd handle challenges to material if you were elected to the school board?
Okay. Well, school situation is different than public libraries where I've worked. So there is differences there, and a lot of challenges that come out during banned book week or so forth are more on the, they're either in Idaho, or they're in school districts more than they are in public schools. So, you have a different situation. Again, what took place in Florida the last year or two, this is an absolute example of what should not be done. But, you listen. One thing I learned when I was in public libraries very early on, and when I first started working in the library, was at the very beginning of the internet. And during my maybe the first few months, a internet station was brought up to was brought into the Elm Library at times, very small, and it was right near the front door, and there was a desk and so forth. And I had just received my training, and boy, was I gung ho about freedom of thought, and I still am. And so I was in charge of the building one of the first times at the main desk, and a patron walked up to me and said, the person over there is looking at porn on there. And so I was already with one person's porn is another person, all the filters, I was ready to go. And I started, and this person said, no, I don't really care about porn and what they look at. I just think that having that screen right at the front door as you walk in is a really bad location. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So, there are things that are challenges that, you need. I don't believe in restricting things, but you look at, say, the Roald Dahl material and what his family and what the publishers are doing with, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but they have
Mm-hmm.
changed some words.
Yes.
And I, in general, would be opposed to changing a writer's words, but I think it was the publisher. I don't think it was the family so much. I think it was more because they realized that these words were not something that schools wanted to have. I think probably they didn't want to lose that client. Now that wasn't a censoring, that wasn't a banning, but I think that looking at material coming in, I think you can question perhaps something at a level. I think you got to listen to questions on this. But so the school board, it's a different situation than public libraries, where thought needs to be open, and there are challenges that come from the right and left. There were challenges to whether Mein Kampf should be in the public library, and the reasoning for people to look at things. But I think a school situation is different. So while I do find most challenges to be, pretty ridiculous, Captain Underpants, for instance, a particular favorite of mine, anyway. Um, uh, Although I do like Professor Poopy Pants even better. But I don't, I think you got to listen. And sometimes even people just want to vent even, so you listen. But sometimes somebody might even have a point.
Yeah, that's a good point about giving people a chance to engage, and maybe in that discussion you can kind of come to an understanding, and even if nothing changes, people feel heard at least.
Yeah, I mean that's the case. A little bit less with a book challenge than with other complaints. I found that sometimes you just have to let people, say their piece, and slightly switching subjects here and maybe making assumptions. But for some issues of bigotry, ignorance is the biggest cause. Now, for some, it isn't. For Nazis in the Klan, it isn't.
Yeah.
But for a lot of situations, or many will say, it's that the person has never met someone who's Jewish, or never met, or been friends with someone who is Asian, or whatever it might be, and never had this explained. I mean, sometimes even minor expressions that they don't really know would be very offensive to someone else. They're not really trying it. So I think a tool against Woody Guthrie had his tool, but I think trying to communicate, again, keep coming back to that. But sometimes bigotry can be at least lessened with learning, with experiencing.
Yeah, agreed. All right, those are all of the questions that I have. I'll give you a few minutes to wrap, and then I will let you get back to your evening. So if there's anything else that I didn't touch on that you would like to touch on, or that you would like people to know, if you have any campaign materials, websites, or anything you want to share, feel free to do so now.
Okay. Again, I wasn't really planning to get back into the political world, and just got into it. So things are a bit different than they were when I first ran for city council. And I'm different too, but I mean, the situation is somewhat different. I think that what isn't different is that it's off elections, both local government, city councils, and school boards occur in local elections. So probably the biggest issue is getting your, I mean, it's an issue for everybody on any level, even presidential, but getting the vote out in an election that the turnout is not big. Now, there's currently more attention on this school board and more participation, more candidates than there perhaps have ever been in Tumwater. But I'm not sure that the turnout is really necessarily going to be affected by that. The last time there was a primary for the school board, I believe the turnout was like 18.9%. Now that will probably be higher. But most Thurston County wide turnout in off elections, you're looking at the high, like 38, 39%. So for my campaign and what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to get together is very much focused on getting, getting people to vote and getting that out. So things that are different. When I was in Yelm, whatever, what was it now? I guess about 20 years ago when I was first elected, my main thing was to get people to know that Mike McGowan is the guy from the library. So a lot of the kids knew me, the parents knew me, teachers knew me, but my badge just said Mike, and that was all. So I had volunteers, and I put together phone lists from the voting records and phone books that existed. I mean, these are things that are different. And my volunteers, mostly all they were saying is, this is the guy from the library. And then, that was all they, and so this is a very different, the scope of it is more. I think the last contested Tumwater School Board election had like 10,500 voters. So it's many more voters than it was, and the district is larger than the city of Yelm was. So there's different issues on there, but part of it is that right now I'm still putting things together. I'm learning about the school board. I'm learning about issues. I'm learning about the people involved. This week it was a little bit of a family bonding experience. I got a website now, and it's live, but it's still a work in progress. So votemikemcgowan.com. And, we've got that to go. And so there's different methodology involved, and there'll be different strategy involved as well. So I'm working on things. Some things are, a work in progress. Absolutely. It will always be. I am not in the primary. So in some ways I have more time. My general plan is to support simpatico candidates in their primary bids and make events that way. My own individual election probably won't gear up till later. And by then, I'll also get to see a little bit of what's going on in the district in terms of the primary results and see some of the candidate statements in the pamphlet. So that will be, August, and that will also be information on how I will run my campaign. But right now, so some of the answers, and I filled out a few questionnaires in the last few weeks, and I filled out another one earlier today. And sometime in the next couple of days, I've got Planned Parenthood on the agenda to fill out. So, some of my answers are, I don't have any of that yet, and I don't know. And I have 2 volunteers, and one of them is related to me. So some of it is coming together. But I will, I want to win, and I think it's important that I do. So, I will be hopefully in communication with you all, if you are pleased with my candidacy, to see what kind of help you can give me.
That's great. We will make decisions at the end of June and reach out to everybody then, so you won't have to wait too long. We're moving at a pretty quick pace considering the dates of primaries, but it sounds like you've got some time to get things together, and it sounds like you've really been digging into the things that you find concerning and are continuing to do so. I don't have any more questions for you. Thank you so much again for agreeing
Could I
to
hit
chat
up
with
with
us.
one more? Do I have any time left?
Oh yeah, you do. I
Okay,
think we've
something
got 7 minutes before it's going to kick us
oh,
out.
okay, that's great. 7 minutes. Ooh, okay. Um, I kind of like to do this partially because it's one of my favorite books. It's a line from it, but also I have found it to be very informative. On my city council days, absolutely, but since as well. And that is, if you were me, what question would you ask?
If I were you, what question would I ask? I think I might, and this is so off the cuff. I think I might ask Olympia Indivisible what they're looking for in a
Ah, very
candidate.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, what are their tenets and what are their values, and making sure that I align with those. That would be probably top of the mind for me.
Okay. What are you looking for in a candidate?
We well, I mean this that's so varied.
I've looked at
It's
your website, so I've done some background.
I think our stances are pretty I'll use the term democratic, not necessarily political party aligned, but of the people aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, Indivisible was formed originally at the national level in response to Donald Trump's first presidency and in spite of his presidency. And so the things that we see happening that are taking us further from a democracy are the things that we want to stop. And we want to put good people in offices, from school boards to congressional representatives that represent values that we feel are American and represent what it means to be an American, which is fairness and equality and upholding the Constitution, which is now suddenly a wild thing to expect of people.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that did I answer well enough to give you an idea?
Yes, I believe you did. And actually,
Okay.
I met with members of the Educators Union, and I will have on the 3rd, I meet with their board. And what was suggested to me, actually, and I forgot to do it today, was to ask them what are they looking for a candidate, because I did not, and I don't, I may have not, I didn't directly ask that in our informal meeting. So that's a good question and a good answer.
No, thanks. You got me on the spot, so hopefully I performed well. I have a
Coming
feeling the
from
teachers union was a little bit more, they're probably looking for more specific things than we are in terms of education based initiatives, but I would hope that we're fairly aligned in values.
well, I think also they're looking at, if there is a budget shortfall, and
Yeah.
if the budget is mostly salaries, and
Yes.
as happens, while things happen, either with shortfalls or even sometimes in good times. It seems like administration grows while those in the front lines shrink. So I suspect that will also be the case with them. But I think they'll be looking very much at not only education, but at finances. And,
Yeah.
truthfully, when I speak with them, I think I'll be asking more than, telling them at this stage. So
Yeah.
that question, by the way, is from, I have a lot of favorite books. And that one is from the Golden Compass. And
Oh,
okay, well, okay.
yes.
Horrible movie, but great,
Yeah.
fantastic book. All time. And it's from the scene when Father Crone goes to the witch council, and at the end of the interview asks, if you were me, what would you ask? So
Hmm.
you're a fine answer to me, at least, maybe not to anyone else, would have also been, where would I find an armored bear?
Oh,
That's,
yes.
which is
I
always a
recommend.
good question.
No, that's a great question. Thanks for asking it. I recommend that series to people regularly. It is wonderful. So
Yes,
always
it
good to
really
find
is.
another reader. That's all I've got. Thank you again so much. We will upload this to the Indivisible site, and then our election committee will decide who they'll endorse. And again, we'll be in touch at the end of June. So thank you again.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Have a good night.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.